A Berean 2025 Study 5.1 Timeline. The Apostles did not start the church in Rome. Shalom, this is the first of 3 studies based upon a timeline. This timeline is a comparison of the ministries of the Apostle Kěpha and the Apostle Sha'ul. It considers specific statements made by those apostles in dated chronological and geographic order. The same timeline is used for the 3 studies, with different aspects being considered in each. The apostles did not start the church in Rome. Who are the Nicolaitans? Followers of the Way, the Nazarene, the Quatrodecimans, and the 144,000. 1. Timeline. The apostles did not start the church in Rome. In 32 CE, the Apostle Sha'ul and the Apostle Kěpha are in Yerushalayim. In 38 CE, the Apostle Sha'ul and the Apostle Kěpha are in Yerushalayim for 15 days. In 43 CE, the Apostle Sha'ul and the Apostle Kěpha are in Antioch in Syria. Key point: neither the Apostle Kěpha or the Apostle Sha'ul had been to Rome in 43 CE. Between 48 and 51 CE, the Apostle Sha'ul completes his first missionary journey. Then in 51 CE, the Apostle Sha'ul and the Apostle Kěpha are in Yerushalayim at the council meeting. The Apostle Sha'ul then begins his second missionary journey through until Corinth. Emperor Claudius identified a group as Christus, Christ or Christians, and expelled them from Rome for creating a disturbance. Aquila and Priscilla were caught up in this disturbance, and the Apostle Sha'ul meets them in Corinth. And after this, Sha'ul left Athens and went to Corinth, and he found a certain Yehudi named Aquilus, born in Pontus, who had recently come from Italy with his wife Priscilla, because Claudius had commanded all the Yehudim to leave Rome. And he came to them, and because he was of the same trade, he stayed with them and was working, for they were tent makers by trade. Key point: in 51 CE, Emperor Claudius identified Christians as creating a disturbance in Rome. Neither apostle had been to Rome in 51 CE. In 52 CE, the Apostle Sha'ul is in Corinth. He wrote to Timothy, warning him of knowledge of our Creator, which looks right but is false. In 53 CE, the Apostle Sha'ul is in Corinth. He wrote to the Galatians, warning of a different good news, to pervert the good news besides what we announced. In 53 CE, the Apostle Sha'ul is in Corinth. He wrote to the Thessalonians, warning the mystery of iniquity does already work. The Apostle Sha'ul begins his third missionary journey. And in 55-56 CE, the Apostle Sha'ul is in Ephesus, and he wrote to the Corinthians, contrasting belief in Yahuwah with belief in Belial, belief in our Messiah with belief in Satan, the sons of Yahuwah with the sons of Satan, warning of another Messiah, a different Ruach, a different good news, false apostles, deceptive workers, masquerading as apostles of Messiah. Key point: between 52 and 56 CE, the Apostle Sha'ul is warning of a counterfeit movement. In 55-56 CE, Sha'ul in Corinth wrote to the Romans. He sends his greetings to 27 people who are in Rome. The Apostle Kěpha is not one of them. Key point: the Apostle Kěpha is not in Rome in 55-56 CE. In 61-62 CE, the Apostle Sha'ul is in Rome. where he wrote to Philemon, the Colossians, the Ephesians, and the Philippians. He mentions 12 people by name who are with him in Rome. The Apostle Kěpha is not one of them. Key point: the Apostle Kěpha was not in Rome in 61-62 CE. The Great Fire of Rome. The Great Fire of Rome was an urban fire that occurred on the night of the 19th of July, 64 CE. The fire began in the merchant shops around Rome's chariot stadium, known as Circus Maximus. After 6 days, the fire was brought under control, but before the damage could be assessed, the fire reignited and burnt for another 3 days. In the aftermath of the fire, 2/3 of Rome had been destroyed. According to Tacitus and later Christian tradition, Emperor Nero blamed the devastation on the Christian community in the city, initiating the persecution of Christians. So back to the timeline. In 64 CE, Emperor Nero identified the Christians as the group responsible for the Great Fire in Rome. In 64 CE, the Apostle Sha'ul is alone in Rome. He wrote to Timothy, "Only Luke is with me. All men forsook me." Key point: to suggest the Apostle Kěpha abandoned the Apostle Sha'ul is untenable. The Apostle Kěpha was not in Rome in 64 CE. In 64 CE, the Apostle Kěpha is in Babylon in Egypt, also known as Coptic Cairo or Old Cairo. In 66 CE, the Apostle Sha'ul is imprisoned again and later martyred. Dear listener, please think for a moment. In 64 CE, there is a great fire in Rome. Tacitus and Christian tradition acknowledge there were Christians in Rome, and that Emperor Nero blamed the Christians for the fire. This is the same year the Apostle Sha'ul tells us he is alone in Rome. This is the same year the Apostle Kěpha tells us he is in Coptic Cairo. The fathers of the Christian church, in playing the victim card, are hoisted by their own petard. The Apostles Sha'ul and Kěpha were not Christians. The Apostles Sha'ul and Kěpha did not start an organization called the Church. In 67 CE, the Apostle Kěpha is in Coptic Cairo, where he wrote the books 2 Peter and Jude. He wrote, "But there also came to be false prophets among the people, as also among you there shall be false teachers, who shall secretly bring in destructive heresies, and deny the master who brought them, bringing swift destruction on themselves. And in greed with fabricated words they shall use you for gain. Having left the right way, they went astray, having followed the way of Balaam the son of Beor, who loved the wages of unrighteousness. For certain men have slipped in, denying Yahuwah and Yahushua our Messiah. Woe to them, because they have gone the way of Cain. They have given themselves to the delusion of Balaam for reward, and perished in the rebellion of Korah." In 90 CE, the Apostle Yohanan writes, "They," that is the anti-messiahs, "went out from us, but they were not of us. For if they had been of us, they would have stayed with us. But in order that it might be made manifest that none of them were of us." 2. Conclusion. In 51 CE, the Apostles Kěpha and Sha'ul were in Yerushalayim. Neither had been to Rome. Yet in 51 CE, Emperor Claudius identified Christians as creating a disturbance in Rome. Throughout 52 to 56 CE, the Apostle Sha'ul is warning of a counterfeit religious movement. In 55-56 CE, the Apostle Kěpha was not in Rome when the Apostle Sha'ul, who was in Corinth, wrote to the Romans. In 61-62 CE, the Apostle Kěpha was not in Rome when the Apostle Sha'ul, who was in Rome, wrote to Philemon, Colossians, Ephesians, and Philippians. In 64 CE, the Apostle Kěpha was not in Rome when the Apostle Sha'ul, who was in Rome, wrote to Timothy, "Only Luke is with me. All men forsook me." In 64 CE, Emperor Nero identified Christians as the group responsible for the Great Fire of Rome. The Apostle Kěpha never went to Rome. After the Yerushalayim Council meeting in 51 CE, the Apostle Kěpha went to Babylon in Egypt, also known as Coptic Cairo. The Apostle Sha'ul did go to Rome. However, the Apostle Sha'ul's ministry to Rome failed. He was alone in Rome in 64 CE. But there was another group in Rome, identified by the Apostle Sha'ul between 52 and 56 CE, by the Apostle Kěpha in 67 CE, by the Apostle Yohanan in 90 CE, by Emperor Nero as Christians in 51 CE, and by Emperor Claudius as Christians in 64 CE. There were no believers in Rome in 64 CE, but there were Christians.